Israel is known as a country that lives perpetually in conflict. Since its founding in 1948, it has fought more than 15 wars of various scales, and today it continues to battle on multiple fronts: Gaza, Lebanon, Syria, Iran, and even cyberspace. Defence spending accounts for roughly 10% of GDP, hundreds of thousands of reservists are on standby, and war has become part of daily life. Yet amid that constant fire, Israel's GDP per capita exceeds $52,000, unemployment remains below 4%, and it ranks among the top 5 happiest nations in the world. A small country, constantly at war, yet still prosperous and optimistic. How can that be possible? Israel has existed in a state of continuous conflict for more than 7 decades. Since 1948, it has never truly known lasting peace. Within less than 80 years, the nation has endured a series of recurring wars. 1948-49 War of Independence, 1956 Suez Crisis, 1967 Six-Day War, 1973 Yom Kippur War, 1982 Lebanon, and the Gaza conflicts lasting for many years. On average, a major military operation erupts every 5 years. Consequently, defence spending has hovered around 9–10% of GDP, triple the OECD average to 3%. More than 15% of the national budget goes to security and defence annually, and hundreds of thousands serve in reserve forces. By 2023-2025, Israel was still engaged in what analysts call a low-intensity multi-front war. In Gaza, Lebanon, the West Bank, Syria, Iran, the Red Sea, and cyberspace, where any single day could trigger another escalation. Following the 7th of October 2023 attack, Israel launched its largest counteroffensive in decades. By late 2024, direct economic losses were estimated at $70 billion, about 13% of GDP. The fiscal deficit doubled, more than 300,000 people were displaced, and key industries, especially tourism and construction, nearly collapsed. Even so, hostilities persisted. Hezbollah continued rocket fire from Lebanon, while Iran-backed militias pressured Israel from multiple directions. This state of permanent readiness has become embedded in the nation's economic and social structure. After independence in 1948, Israel built a socialist, collective economy inspired by the Jewish labour movement, Histadrut. For the first 3 decades, the state and Histadrut controlled around 60% of the economy, including major companies, banks, insurance, and healthcare. Prices, wages, and trade were centrally managed. Meanwhile, heavy defence costs and massive immigration strained the budget. From 1,948 to 1,952, the population doubled from 806,000 to 1.6 million, most being destitute refugees. The government spent heavily on housing, food, healthcare, and education, causing public expenditure to exceed productive capacity. By the early 1967, the public sector exceeded 70% of GDP, and Israel relied heavily on US aid and German reparations. By the mid-1970s, this model had reached its limits. State-owned enterprises were inefficient, wages were politically driven rather than productivity-based, and public spending soared after the Yom Kippur War, 1973, and the Lebanon War, 1982, while output stagnated. The government began printing money to cover deficits, pushing inflation above 400% per year by 1984. Wages lost value hourly, goods disappeared from shelves, and citizens rejected the shekel in favour of the US dollar. Banks faced liquidity crises, foreign investors withdrew, and the economy verged on total collapse. Unemployment surpassed 10%, public debt neared 200% of GDP. This forced the government to abandon the collectivist model and shift toward liberalisation, fiscal tightening, and institutional reform, the beginning of what became known as Israel's economic miracle after 1985. In July 1985, Prime Minister Shimon Peres and Finance Minister Yitzhak Modai unveiled the National Economic Stabilisation Plan. It rested on 5 core pillars: drastic public expenditure cuts, reduce subsidies, delay non-essential infrastructure, and close or privatise loss-making state enterprises. Temporary wage price freeze. The government, employers and labour unions agreed to freeze wages for 3 months and halt essential goods price hikes to break the wage inflation spiral. Fiscal and monetary discipline. Stop monetary financing of deficits, cap public spending growth, and prioritise debt reduction. Controlled devaluation of the shekel. Allow a managed appreciation to restore export competitiveness, then fix it at a lower level to build confidence. Grant independence to the Bank of Israel. Prohibit government, ordered money printing, and give the central bank a single mandate inflation control. Once implemented in July 1985, the plan caused a sharp economic contraction. Domestic demand fell nearly 10% within 6 months, unemployment rose to 4% to 7%, and light industry output, food, textiles, building materials, dropped 15–20%. Real incomes in the public and state enterprise sectors declined 20–25% due to wage freezes and subsidy cuts. The Histadrut Labour Federation, representing 1.5 million workers, initially staged strikes and protests, especially in electricity and transport. Dozens of unprofitable state firms were shut down or privatised, and private investors paused spending to test the policy's credibility. Interest rates stayed above 20% to absorb liquidity and curb inflation, effectively freezing credit markets. Yet within 2 years, Israel's economy reversed course. The budget deficit fell from 15.5% of GDP to under 3%. Inflation collapsed from 400% to below 20% and stabilised around 10% through the 1,990 seconds, while GDP growth rebounded 2 to 5% per year. Public debt was nearly halved and foreign exchange reserves tripled. The shekel stabilised, dollarisation vanished, and the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange revived. Households resumed saving and long-term planning. Even Histadrut, after resistance, supported reform. Unemployment gradually dropped from 7% to 5%. As Perez later reflected, we didn't treat the fever with painkillers, we cut out the disease itself. We made our people poorer for a short while so that our nation could become rich forever. After the stabilisation plan, a question arose: macroeconomic stability prevents collapse, but it doesn't create wealth. In modern history, examples like Malaysia, Mexico, Brazil, and Thailand all achieved rapid growth only to stagnate once reaching middle income status. Economists call this the middle income trap, when an economy can no longer generate new productivity, technology, or innovative capital. Israel, however, took a different path. After conquering hyperinflation, it chose not to stop its stability but to build a high-tech, venture-driven economy, a move unprecedented at the time. From here began what became known as the Ozma Miracle, the $100 million that changed a nation's destiny. Having restored macroeconomic stability, Israel entered the 1,990 seconds with a new vision: growth through knowledge and technology. Between 1,990 and 1,995, over 1 million immigrants from the former Soviet Union arrived, nearly 40%, were engineers, doctors, or scientists. This influx strengthened universities, research institutes, and tech firms, lifting Israel's R&D employment ratio to 140 researchers per 10,000 workers, the highest in the world. To harness this talent, the government launched the Ozma program, 1993, a $100 million venture capital fund operating on a 2 private, 1 public model, allowing investors to repurchase the state's stake after 5 years, if successful. This bold framework attracted more than $3 billion in private investment, spawning hundreds of startups and laying the foundation for Israel's innovation ecosystem. By the late 1,990 seconds, R&D spending reached 5% of GDP, high-tech exports exceeded 50% of total trade, and global giants Intel, Google, IBM established research centres in Tel Aviv and Haifa. GDP per capita rose from $9,000, 1,987, to over $22,000, 2,000. As Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin declared, Israel can never be rich in natural resources, we must be rich in intellect. Every child in a classroom is a potential oil field. That philosophy transformed a once-dependent, war-scarred economy into a start-up nation, a country where innovation itself became the instinct for survival. Despite living under constant threat, Israel ranks among the top 5 happiest countries in the World Happiness Report 2024, alongside Finland and Sweden. This resilience stems not from peace, but from social cohesion rarely found elsewhere. With only 9.4 million people, yet the highest fertility rate in the OECD, 3.1 children per woman, Israel is a society of large, multi-generational families where grandparents support grandchildren and neighbours act like kin. About 90% of youth serve in military or national service, cultivating discipline, responsibility, and a collective spirit of contribution. After the 7th of October 2023 attack, over 15,000 citizens volunteered within 48 hours, cooking meals, caring for children, supplying soldiers, donating blood, and aiding evacuees. In Israel, volunteering is a social reflex, not a command. Moreover, Jewish faith and culture provide a deep moral foundation. The biblical phrase, B'Hadam B'chaim we choose life, echoes through every crisis from the Holocaust to Gaza, fostering unmatched optimism about the future, even in wartime. Happiness in Israel is not the calm of peace, but the meaning found in surviving, rebuilding, and enduring together. Israel's unique structure allows war not to destroy but to fuel growth. Defence spending, about 10% of GDP, triple the OECD average, is largely reinvested into the domestic economy, creating jobs, funding R&D, and boosting tech exports. Military projects such as Iron Dome, Heron UAVs, OFEC satellites, ISA radars, and the 8,200 Cyber Intelligence Unit serve both defence and civilian innovation. In 2023, defence exports reached a record $13.1 billion, is approximately equal to 10% of total exports, while the cybersecurity sector contributed over $10 billion. Roughly 15% of civilian technology is today AI sensors, cybersecurity software originate from military R&D, later commercialised. Major startups like Checkpoint, Mobileye, NSO and Wiz were founded by veterans of Unit 8200. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu once remarked, "We cannot wait for peace to innovate. In Israel, peace may be distant, but progress never stops." Israel has learned to turn crises into engines of development. From 400% hyperinflation in 1984 to the Gaza war of 2023, this country of barely 20,000 square kilometres has built an economy worth nearly $500 billion, with GDP per capita is approximately equal to $52,000. Public debt is less than 60% of GDP, and R&D spending 5.4% of GDP, the highest in the world. It exports intellect more than resources and willpower more than goods. For Israelis, survival is not a reaction, it is a creative instinct. Even under air raid sirens, they start new companies. In wartime, they still sing, dance, and set export records. Am Yisrael Chai, the nation of Israel lives, is not merely a cry of survival, it is a declaration that Israel does not just endure the storm, it thrives within it when the world expects it to fall. Thank you for watching to the end of this video. If you found this analysis useful, please subscribe, share, and leave a comment so more people can understand the silent crisis shaping our future.